For most of us, setting boundaries are difficult because many of us want to be able to make others happy. But in doing that, oftentimes we become unhappy because we are meeting their needs, but our needs aren't being met. So it's important that you kind of know what your boundaries are and let people know what your boundaries are. So those are the four top secrets that I think are important in a healthy relationship. Make sure God is the center. Define what a meaningful relationship is to you. Being able to communicate effectively. Being able to communicate with care. And knowing what your boundaries are. So, despite some of our best efforts, we have relationships that are no longer healthy. As you can see, I have two plants there. One is a very healthy plant, and one is a withering plant. So when we look at relationships and caring for each other, the healthy relationship gives life. It is there to help sustain you in positive ways. And it will cause you to be able to flourish because you're being nurtured in positive ways. On the other side, we have a withering plant. And relationships will start to wither when there is poor relationships, when priorities aren't in proper alignment, when behaviors become unhealthy, and we will talk about some of those unhealthy behaviors in a few minutes, you will start to wither. And typically, we will see in relationships, the total person will start to wither. From everything from isolation to, losing weight, from not eating or overeating, doing things because you are in an unhealthy relationship. A lot of people do things, drugs, alcohol, to try to numb the pain. And we know that those are not healthy. And that is not a relationship that one would need to be in. So when we feel that we are getting into what we like to call a toxic relationship, sometimes we have to decide, is it best for me to even stay in this relationship? And sometimes it is a slow, gradual process of going downhill. On a flower, you might see one or two leaves start to turn brown. And then the next week, there are more leaves turning brown until you have what you see on this picture, which is very little life left. But there are some sparks. The plant isn't totally dead. And as long as there is a spark, there is hope. And you can work on that relationship. But if you don't, it will start to affect you not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually. So it's important that you recognize those signs that you might be getting into a toxic relationship. So just let's look at some signs of what toxic relationships look like. So when you are in a toxic relationship, first of all, there is definitely negative communication or no communication. Most of the time, you're in those relationships when you have stopped talking with each other. When you do talk to each other, it's normally negative, it's normally hostile. There's a lot of criticism, there's a lot of starcism. Can't talk today. But it is just not good conversation. It's negative conversation, negative communication. So that is the first sign of a toxic, unhealthy relationship. The next one we have is no support. In a healthy relationship, remember we talked about you look out for each other. That person is there, and you know that you can count on them. When there's a toxic relationship, you feel like you are alone because you have no support. And not only, it becomes emotional, and in some cases, financially, there's no support. Next, your needs are being ignored. You're being ignored. What you want, what you may need, is totally being ignored. It's like you're on your own. And in many cases, this is why so many people stay in toxic relationships, because they feel that they can't make it on their own, that they don't have the means to provide for their needs, so they will stay. And the next one is gaslighting. And this, I feel, is probably one of the number one reasons why so many people stay in toxic relationships. They make you question yourself as far as your sanity, your feelings, whether what you're saying or thinking is even real. They make you question yourself about everything, which in turn causes you to lose self-confidence in yourself. I hear sometimes people say, well, maybe I am crazy. Maybe I am ugly. Maybe I will never be able to get a job. Maybe I am no good. That's gaslighting. They're making you doubt who you are, and in most cases, whose you are. Because you belong to God, and God will always take care of you. But they will make you think that you can't do it without them, that you have to have them to survive. And that is just another tactic of the enemy, and for your oppressor to keep you in a toxic relationship. The next one is feeling stress. While we all experience stress, but you shouldn't constantly be in that state that you feel that you have to walk on eggshells, that you have to be really, really careful with what you say, what you do, because if you upset the other person in the relationship, then it's going to be bad for you. Because in most toxic relationships, eventually it comes down to abuse. Whether it's physical abuse or verbal abuse, it is still abuse. In these toxic relationships, there's no respect. You are being disrespected. They don't value you. There are situations that they make decisions without you. As, especially when it comes to money, when it comes to the kids, you're just not included. And that's being disrespectful, that you are not equal in that relationship. And we talked about that in a healthy relationship, you are an equal partner, not less than. So it's important that you recognize some of these signs as we go along. And if you feel that yourself have been put in one of these situations, that you feel that you're in a toxic relationship, we're going to talk about some things that we can do to help in that relationship. So a few more signs that you're in a toxic relationship. Being cut off from others. In a toxic relationship, a lot of times they want to isolate you from people that can help you. When they isolate you, that gives them more control. Remember, we talked about the gaslighting. They make you think that you're the one that's insane, don't know what you're talking about. And when you're isolated, you don't have anybody else there to help combat all this negativism, with them just making you feel like you're less than. So being cut off from others is definitely a sign. If you are always, telling your family you can't come because of this or that, and the bottom line is he really or she really does not want you communicating with others, that's a sign. That is definitely a sign. You should not be in a relationship where you can't feel free to talk to other people outside of just that relationship. Because what if something was to happen to that person? You will have cut off your access to other people that can help you. So if you're in a relationship and you're finding that all your time is being managed or spent with that one person, think about it. Really think about it. Dishonesty is another sign of a toxic relationship. The lack of being transparent about things. The bottom line is, if you know that that person is lying to you, then that's a sign of a toxic relationship. You should not put yourself in relationships where there's no honesty. So dishonesty is definitely. And the last two pretty much goes together. Controlling behaviors as well as physical violence. So many people have died because they were in toxic relationships. And, a lot of times, especially when there is domestic violence, that person will tell you, I won't do it again. Or they will say, you made me do it. You acted this way, so I had to show you. I had to punish you. Those are not healthy relationships. You should not be getting physically hit or beaten or saying, because you didn't do what I said, you're not going to get any money for groceries for the next week. Or you have to sleep outside. When you are in a toxic relationship, those are the kinds of things that prevent you from being the person that God intended you to be. So we have to be careful that when we see signs of toxic relationships, that we say something, that we don't knowingly not get involved. And if you know someone that's in a toxic relationship, let them know that that's not the kind of relationship that God intended for them to be a part of. So we've talked about several things as far as unhealthy relationships. So let's talk about how can we restore some healthy relationships. Once we recognize that a relationship is in trouble, then we have to be willing to make some changes. And in a toxic relationship, this isn't, I'm going to get help for me. It's a all or nothing kind of thing. When you're in a toxic relationship, both parties have to be willing to work on the relationship. If you're willing, but the person that you're in relationship with is not willing, then you really need to think about, is this a relationship that I need to continue in? Because if you want to restore a relationship, all that's involved, meaning each person that is involved in this toxic relationship, must be willing to accept responsibility. You know, in most cases, it's not a one-way situation. It's not all he did this or all she did that. And sometimes we can't recognize it ourselves, and we might need to have a mediator, someone that will not take sides, one that will listen objectively to what's going on. But you have to own up to your part of the relationship. Even if your part of owning up is that you saw this was happening, but you were afraid to do something about it. That's taking responsibility, because now you realize that that's not what you should have done. But at this point now you are taking responsibility. The second thing is be willing to dig in and do the work. It's hard when issues have become toxic to want to change things. And it's a lot of work, and it's painful work, because in most cases it includes going back to what was it that started this relationship to go south. What things started to happen to let us know that we were now off the path of success, but had turned onto the road of destruction. And sometimes it's painful to go back, but it's necessary to be able to go forward again. Sometimes we have to look back, but looking back isn't staying back. You're looking back only to see where you missed your turn and what you need to do to get back on the right road. And that's hard work. And owning up to what you did wrong. You know, I have up here, keep your eyes forward. And that is, you know, you can't constantly keep turning around or talking about what happened. You have to look forward. You have to be willing to say, God forgave me, so I have to forgive in order to move forward. The next thing is you have to be able to create room for healing. And when I talk about create room for healing, know that what you feel is real. What happened to you was real for you. And sometimes it takes time for healing. And for many of us, the healing process takes place when we replace those negative thoughts, feelings, activities, emotions with something positive. Something that will help the relationship to move forward. Putting in some new positive type of activities. And to recognize that change does not happen overnight, but that you are creating room for change, meaning that you are a willing vessel, that you want change to happen, and that you are willing to be a part of that process for change to happen. So create room for change. Communicate in a healthy way. That goes back to when we talked about those things for a healthy relationship should include communicating in healthy ways, be positive, show love, show affection. Don't even focus on the negative. There will be some negative things that happen. There will be some bad days. But instead of focusing on those, focus on the positive. Focus on what is to come. And be willing to accept help. So many times we want to do everything on our own. Sometimes we are embarrassed for other people to know what we're going through or what we have gone through. People that really care about you and love you, they are there to support you. They're not there to dwell on what happened. They're there to help you to get to a better place. And sometimes that includes including others. Sometimes that includes letting down your guard and letting others in. I hope that this podcast have given you some strategies that will be helpful for a positive, healthy relationship. And to know that if you need help, reach out. There are people that want to help. You can always call Word Tabernacle Counseling Division, and we will provide you with whatever we can to help you. We will help you get the resources you need to get out of a toxic relationship if that's where you find yourself. Many of us are in healthy relationships, but have been in toxic relationships and know how that feels. We know, what it's like to feel alone. So reach out. We're there to help you. And as I close, I wanted to share how most successful, healthy relationships start with love. They start and they end with love. all people need to know that they belong. And if you're in a relationship where you don't feel like you belong, then chances are that's not the spot for you. We all need to be loved and accepted, but no one will be loved by everyone. And I put that in there because a lot of times we feel that we need to be loved by everybody. And that's not true. We don't have to be loved by everyone because we have the love of God. So, it's okay if you're in a relationship and it's not working. You don't have to stay there because you feel that's the only way that you're going to get love. That's not true. And a lot of times people in the relationship make us feel that way. When we love others, regardless of whether it's warranted or not, we are freeing ourselves to be loved as well. And one of my favorite scriptures is 1 Corinthians 13:4-8. And it is, love is patient and is kind, doesn't envy, doesn't brag, is not proud, doesn't behave itself inappropriately, doesn't seek to have its own way, is not provoked, is not easily provoked, takes no account of evil, doesn't rejoice in unrighteousness, rejoices with the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. So I hope you have a great month of love for the month of February. If Word Tab Counseling Division can help you in any way, I have our contact information up. You can reach out to stanley.purvis@wordtab.net, tinger.purvis@wordtab.net, the marriage ministry at wordtab.net, or WTC Counseling at wordtab.net. We are here to serve and hope that if you find yourself in trouble, please reach out. You can also call us in our office at 252-210-3434. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast for the month of February. Be blessed.